Our speaker today is Kari Tauring. We're so fortunate to have her. We had her around this time last year as well. And it was interesting having the Latina music just before Kari came on, because to hear Kari's stories, and I'm a Latina, my family's from Puerto Rico, her stories are so different from what I would hear from my Hispanic family, but yet there are some similarities, you know. So it's really interesting to hear. So Kari is a volva, which is an Old Norse for staff carrier, and she shares her ethnic heritage through performance and workshops. She balances the Northern European traditions with her North American ancestors to create a healed and unified heritage. She's a bridge walker through time and space and global proportions. She also does workshops. She has recordings, she has writings. I don't know if you brought any of yours here that we could? Okay. She's got some in the van, so if you're interested, you could let her know during the coffee, and maybe she might be able to get them out. And she's a schooled individual as well. She has a Bachelor of Arts and double major in English and philosophy. She has her MA from the University of St. Thomas, and she's ordained from the Church of Spiritual Humanism.
Thank you so much for having me. I've always am so excited to come to do the Harriet service in the winter time, because of course we Norskies love the winter time. It's such a different winter than last year. I don't think we even really needed it here last year. We were trying to go up over. I remember last year I actually was skiing up Lake Street at this time last year. So it was a very different winter. But still, it's dark. It's really dark. And we are always kind of reminded of how important community is as the darkness creeps in. Of course, we're on the upswing. We've passed the solstice, so it ought to be getting a little bit lighter every time. And it's even more dark when we don't have snow to reflect any of the light we do have. So I think at this time, it's even more important to remember the light of the community that we have. Yes, I have it. Sorry. Yeah. Now I'm on. Is there a big difference? Oh, okay. So I wrote a sort of a sermon for today, and my husband said, You're gonna do that? Do you want everyone to go home and be very depressed? And I'm like, oh. It's like, it's not a bad thing to get, leave them laughing at the end, hey? Because what I was thinking about was this idea of our economic crises. We're in this economic crisis all the time. And I was thinking about the sort of kind of balances that we have of the difference between reciprocity culture and redistributive culture, and there's some very important differences there. Reciprocity is a way of, it's a sort of the gifting culture. You go, oh, well, of course I'll help you out of the ditch, because eventually I'm going to need that too, and we give and receive in this sort of a balanced way. And redistributive culture says, we need one person to get all the stuff and keep all the stuff safe, and then dole it out according to the need of the community. And they're two sort of different ways of going about things. And I think my immigrant ancestors really had a balance between those kinds of things. There were certain parts of their world that were absolutely reciprocity. You always had a pot of coffee on in case someone stopped by. Always had extra treats just in case. someone was coming. You always have this idea that you need to be in balance with other people in your community in a gifting way. And the sort of rune for gifting and reciprocity is Gifu. Gifu is 2 staves. Now this is my stave. It's sort of like each of us is a stave because we have our spines and we're upright. And if you're upright, that means you're alive and doing things. And if you're this way, you're either dead or sleeping. You're this way. But when you are upright, then you are a stave, and you have in gifting staves of equal length bound at the middle to make this wonderful little X. Yeah, Gifu. And staves of equal length bound at the middle means giving and receiving in balance. And you think, okay, well here in the front row we've got one big stave mom and one little stave kid. And what do you have when you've got these one little stave and one big stave? And then it crosses like this, and then you have the Nausi's rune, the need rune. Because of course, there's all kinds of need. Now I was up with my little boy, who's not so little anymore, but he was sick as it could be all night long. So as mothers or as members of the community who are really in tune with need, the need fire, we just hop to it and we go and we're like, okay, what can I do to help? What can we do? And we help to balance that need and make it equal again, make it Gifu again. And we don't kind of expect anything in return for doing. But at the same time, we know we're going to be in need, and we know that in a true gifting culture, somebody will come to fill our needs. We will have our needs met. If I was as I was thinking about sort of the Christmas message, I thought, well, here's this baby with not much to give sort of yet, just got born and just a tiny little thing. And yet we place so many of our hopes and our own needs on this little child, this little hope for the future. And in old culture, we take those little hopes for the future and we make, and why don't you come and be my demo guy with me? You take all the little staves, right? And here's your little staff, here's my little staff. Here's all the tiny little staves. And look at us, we're big staves on the end. And so we cross them at the middle, like this, see? Now we are Gifu, the little staves in the middle, the children and the elderly in the middle of our circle. And we are strong and we can still do all sorts of helps for them. And so we are the big staves on the outside. And this creates the rune manas, community. And that is the whole important key. Because that little baby didn't just grow up and do things all on his own and then that was that. Yeah, no, the baby had all kinds of gifts of the Magi, of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, these things that are precious to the spiritual nature of what this work was going to be. And money so that Mary could take him across into Egypt and, teach him all of those Gnostic ways and, all those things, the Coptic and all these different things. And so that when this baby became a staff, we could see, aha, now we have strong pillars we can all lean into in our own weakness, in our own time of weakness and need. So there's these concepts all throughout the world of community, of needing, people needing one another and joining together to create these sort of strong structures for each other. When we're talking about our spiritual life too, we have a similar thing. reciprocity, when you are doing folkways, that makes your tradition and my tradition so similar, because we all have children and elderly in our communities, no matter where we live on this earth. And so when we all have to get along in nature together. We all have to take a look at our natural resources and go, okay, well, what do we need? What can we get? Now, in some cultures, reciprocity is so important, because if they tried to be a redistributive culture, it would destroy the whole entire environment. Some environments are so very fragile that you have to just assume that you're going to get just what you need, and take what you need and give back, and what we call in gardening amend. We make amendments. We amend the soil, and we say, all right, we have taken this energy from you, and now we're making amends. We're in reciprocity with the nature itself. And then there's, of course, some places where we're like, all right, we've got 3 months to get enough food together to feed ourselves through the long, dark winter. And so redistribution comes into place there. So we all work really hard. We get what we can. We put up as much food as we can, and we store it in a common barn in the community, and then we all kind of hole in for the winter, and we hope we did as best as we could, and we hope that it was a good year. And when it's not, we have to then go into reciprocity and do some hunting and those kinds of things. So there's this sort of a balance there, and so much of our spiritual lives talks about